Hey there, my lovely calamities. Welcome back to the channel. I bet you're wondering why these episode breakdowns seem a bit out of order, right? Well, let me explain. I'm doing my best to bring you as much content as possible without straying too far from the true crime cases that I cover on this channel. Today, we're diving into episode 6 of season 2. And boy, do I have some thoughts to share about it. But before we jump in, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon so you never miss any of the new content I upload on the channel. I've been purposely skipping over the servant storylines because, let's face it, they can be quite dull. However, if you're not watching the show and relying on these recaps, instead, let me introduce you to Jack, one of the servants. He's been playing with the hearts of two maids. Just kidding, he's actually quite nice, but seriously, justice for Bridget and tinkering with a clock for what feels like forever. Honestly, the tinkering has been as exciting as watching paint dry. But guess what? This week, he finally manages to make his alarm clock invention work. It's a small but enjoyable storyline, so now it's time to bring it into the spotlight. So Jack decides to apply for a patent, but unfortunately, he's not a member of some fancy horological society, so his application gets rejected. Can you believe it? I mean, just look at Shark Tank. None of those entrepreneurs look like they belong to any society related to their inventions. Jack isn't even inventing the first alarm clock that happened way back in 1787. If you can believe it, mechanical alarm clocks were already a thing during Jack's time, but according to Marian, they didn't work well. She doesn't bother to explain why though. Apparently, she has time to teach underprivileged children how to read, but not enough time to enlighten us about the flaws of contemporary alarm clocks. Thanks a lot, Marian. Real nice. Anyway, the good news is that the other people in the Van Ryan house pitch in to cover Jack's patent application fee. Hopefully, this will motivate him to keep going and start his own whimsical alarm clock company, which perfectly matches his Timothy Chalamet-like charm. Oscar finds himself caught in a scam, and it's incredibly frustrating to witness. It's like these scammers have never watched a movie before. Joke, remember that shady railroad investment he put his money into last week? The guy behind the fancy desk tells Oscar that they're only allowing a select group of wealthy investors, and as a parting gift, he hands Oscar a check for his supposed returns. Oscar, being clever, decides to test the waters and offers an even bigger check. To his surprise, the big desk man refuses, insisting that Oscar takes his money back. Now, here's the confusing part. Are we supposed to know it's a scam or not? It's hard to tell. The ultimate twist would be if Julian Fellows wrote this storyline as a genuine one and Oscar actually ended up with a fortune from his railroad investment. But alas, that's not the case. In Maud, the scammer will vanish into thin air, probably leaving Oscar a note about how she values money more than him. Oh well, hopefully Oscar will have something left after this ordeal. Everyone is buzzing with excitement about Cousin Dashell's garden party, except for Marian, who unfortunately has to spend her time teaching children. When Agnes hears about this, she remarks that the children will still be poor and needy the next day. It's a witty comment, but it feels a bit out of character for Agnes. From what I gather, she's more of a strong-willed person who fights her battles on her own level. Being outright Scrooge McDuck about impoverished children doesn't quite fit her persona. It seems like Fellows wanted to inject some Dowager Countess of Grantham vibes into the story, even though Agnes is a different character. Later on, Agnes refers to the children as a bunch of hobbledehoys, which is, well, amusing, I suppose. Dashell's infatuation with Marian is evident, but unfortunately, she hasn't shown any signs of reciprocating his feelings. So it comes as quite a shock to the viewers when Dashell decides to pull a Michael Scott at Diwali and propose to Marian in front of everyone. Seriously, in front of everyone, it's astonishing how many people made such terrible mistakes before TV and film came along to show them the error of their ways. Marian isn't interested, but she's at a loss for words because, well, Dashell isn't a bad guy. He's just, okay, average. She doesn't want to embarrass him, even though he's the one who put her in this incredibly awkward position. Eventually, Marian reluctantly agrees to his proposal, saying, if you really want me to, say the sweet words of love. I really think that proposing to someone in public is so tacky. When men do that, do they even realize the pressure that they are applying for a woman to say yes and not no? I honestly think that she should have said no. Hell, he's the one who set himself up for failure. You don't just blindside someone with a proposal without even discussing what the other person likes. And okay, I'm getting off track. Back to the Gilded Age. Now, let's shift our attention to the real world drama. We have the Pittsburgh steel strike, which is based on the Homestead strike, and the thrilling escape of Peggy and T. Thomas Fortune from Alabama. Although we don't witness their escape firsthand, we do see them hiding in a barn, and now they're finally back home. What a relief. Peggy wastes no time in sharing the news with Marian. She recounts the terrifying experience of hiding in the barn to escape a violent mob. Marian responds with a rather unexpected comment saying, "I imagine it brought you closer." Seriously, Marian? Imagine your black friend in the 1890s telling you about the fear and danger they faced while hiding from a lynch mob, and your response is to suggest it brought them closer? That's just absurd, Marian. But anyway, Peggy goes ahead and reveals that she and Fortune shared a kiss, leaving Marian scandalized since he's a married man. Peggy quickly reassures her that she's well aware of his marital status. Now, Peggy finds herself in a tricky situation, having to navigate working with him, which is definitely not easy when you can't simply block someone out by staring at your phone or computer. They must collaborate though, because Peggy's mother, Dorothy, informs her that the NYC Education Board is attempting to shut down schools for black children due to their lack of faith in black teachers' abilities. In response, they visit the seamstress shop of teacher and principal Sarah Garnett Heath was a real person, where Peggy decides to write about the impending closures. She proposes the idea to Fortune and he agrees to co-write it with her. Interesting. Will we get another love scene? Yeah, regarding the steel strike, I'm not sure, my friend. The outcome of the Homestead strike wasn't favorable for the workers. Perhaps this situation will be different somehow, but it's disheartening nonetheless. The handling of the strike storyline is all right, I suppose. However, it just makes me want to rewatch the exceptional BBC miniseries North and South, which portrays a much more compelling strike storyline. Anyway, George meets the leader of the strikes family, realizes that workers are human beings too, and ultimately prevents the militia from opening fire on them. His henchman appears deeply wounded and disappointed by this display of compassion. Now my question is, can the militia simply open fire on them? There were 2 rows of armed men. The workers were merely standing there chanting. That seems highly illegal, doesn't it? I tried searching to see if anything similar had occurred, but I couldn't find anything. Even during the Homestead strike, it seems they exchanged gunfire with the strikers, and the militia injured some individuals with bayonets, but there weren't around 30 men with rifles firing into a densely packed crowd. If you happen to know of any incidents like this that took place before the 20th century, please leave a comment below. Fascinating stuff. All right, it was quite evident that there was something brewing with this whirlwind romance involving Robert Sean Leonard. Initially, I had my suspicions of a shady past because I always enjoy a good nefarious twist. However, it turns out that they had to expedite Addie and Reverend Luke's relationship, engagement, and marriage due to the unfortunate revelation that he is terminally ill. Perhaps RSL's availability was limited to just 1 season. The writers really dragged out the revelation of his illness, which unfortunately left me feeling annoyed until they finally disclosed that it was cancer. I even looked up which type of cancer causes back pain, but it seems there are numerous possibilities, and I don't want to bring anyone down who may have experienced something similar. So let's leave it at that. This means that Ada will soon be back in the house with Agnes, but for now we'll be treated to heartwarming scenes of Luke and Ada waltzing in their parlor. I found it endearing, but goodness, it's so heartbreaking. Finally, Agnes pays a visit to Ada's house upon hearing the news, and she embraces her tightly. Well done, Agnes. And that's where we stand. The Larry and Marian situation is still simmering on low heat. Bertha had a blink and you'll miss it appearance this week, so perhaps Carrie Coon was occupied with another project. Blade is in a good mood. Mrs. Winterton is attempting to pilfer Bertha's box at the Met, but George is putting a stop to it with threats and the mention of a train abduction. So what do you think about the marriage proposal, and tell me what you think about Peggy and Mr. Fortune's relationship. Till next time, take care of yourself.